When the hurricane hit New Orleans and the town sank under the waves, was that a natural disaster? The Dutch prepared their dikes for the worst storm in 10,000 years. Had New Orleans followed that example, no tragedy would have occurred. It's not that no one knew. The Flood Control Act of 1965 mandated improvements in the levee system that held back Lake Pontchartrain.
Pontchartrain.
The system was to be completed by 1978. 40 years later, only 60% of the work had been done. Willful blindness and corruption took the city down. A hurricane is an act of God, but failure to prepare when the necessity for preparation is well known, that's sin. Like that. I got goosebumps.
Yeah. The failure to hit the mark.
Hit the mark, and the wages of sin is death.
That's right. Welcome to the Country Boy Book Club, where we take the time to really enjoy life and become a little bit better every day.
And what that really means is focusing on the whole picture.
We are focused on improving our mental, physical, spiritual, and financial well-being, and we love for you to come with us on this journey.
In this series, we cover Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, an antidote to chaos.
We're happy you're here and can't wait to hear what you're getting out of this book. Join the conversation. Man, you want to get into this? I've got a pretty gnarly story to tell about work last week.
I don't want to get into gnarly.
I didn't want to get into the gnarly moment either, but it did. And all right, so let me start out by saying, like, this, it really messed me up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this experience that I had, it was last Friday, and so you know, the end of the work week, and it messed me up pretty much the whole weekend. I started to feel myself around Sunday. And so you electricians, you're going to pretty much kind of scoff at this story. Like, some of you will say I'm making a big deal out of nothing, and I'll say fair enough. Because obviously I'm sitting here right now. I did the right thing. Let me just tell the story. All right, so I work with electrical systems anywhere from 12 volts DC to the highest I've done is 230,000 volts AC. Most recently I did a underground. I worked on an underground bore of 230,000 volts, which is interesting. Beside the point. I got a call last Friday that some wires needed to be hooked up that were left unhooked, and I was the guy that needed to do it, right? I was the only qualified person on our team on site that could do that job, so I got the call. My subcontractor meets me at this location. We've got a medium voltage transformer that is 34,500 volts on the primary side, the high side, and I think 630 volts on the low side.
So how many, really quick, just to kind of put it in perspective, how many volts does it take to kill a human being?
Oh, it's not necessarily the volts that kill you, it's the current. I don't know how many volts it takes to get through your skin. Obviously, like, you can touch a 12 volt battery, you can touch a 24 volt, pretty sure you can touch a 48 volt. After that, it might start to get to the point to where the voltage can get through the skin. Think of voltage like pressure. That's the best way I can describe it.
So
but
I just looked it up.
The killing thing. So, go ahead.
Assuming it's steady current flow, as opposed to like a shock. Shocks above 2,700 volts are often fatal. With those above 11,000 volts being usually fatal. Okay.
Yeah,
we'll
but
just
that
say 2,000. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that, I mean, you think about, like, people get killed in residential situations all the time. That's 120 volts. That's 120 volts. That's
Yeah.
like that data that you just read is a little skewed, because
Yeah.
120
This
volts
gave
will
two numbers
kill
that were
you
both fatal. Yeah.
freaking dead. It's milliamps. I think it's like 40 milliamps that'll stop your heart. Now that's
That
got to
sounds about
be,
right.
and like you can get that kind of juice out of a relatively small battery. You know, it would have to be hooked up to your heart. Whatever. We're getting way in the weeds here.
Yeah.
34,500 volt transformer, 630. There is a switch in which you can turn the transformer off. There's still voltage running through the high side, but you turn off the secondary side. You turn off the low side. And so proper I'm only going to talk proper protocol here. Proper protocol is to use a disconnect tool. That's a fiberglass stick with a grasping tool on the end. Some linemen are going to laugh at me right now because I didn't use the right term, but whatever. I'll laugh at you later. So we take my subcontractor takes the disconnect tool, rotates the switch. Switch rotates all the way just fine, but doesn't click. Does not open the circuit. Does not turn off the transformer. I'm a relatively big guy, so like, well, all right, let me try it. And again, dumb, shouldn't have done that. Didn't operate, should have left it alone. Try to turn the switch. I put everything I can into opening that switch, and it does not open. So this is where things get a little murky. I elected to do some hot work. You can work on electrical equipment hot. Linemen do it all the time. It's not out of the question. It's just not preferred. Everybody would rather work on de-energized equipment versus energized equipment. But in certain situations, you don't have much of a choice. I elected to go ahead and go through on that. Now, in order to do that work, there's certain pieces of gear you should have on. Number one, you should have electrically rated boots. Depending on, there's arc flash studies, and again, I can get in the weeds, but basically there are calculations that go into this that say you need to wear X amount of protective gear. Like, think of like what a fireman wears. Basically, it's essentially the same material. FR gear, fire resistant gear. So I've got my spacesuit on. It required a 40 cal suit, or that's what I had with me. So that's what I had to wear. I put on my 40 cal suit, my spacesuit, literally looks like a spacesuit, and I had to put on electrical gloves. Electrical gloves have to be tested every 6 months. Like, that's a requirement. My gloves, I pull my gloves out, and I look at the date, and they literally went out of date the day before. And because of liability reasons, I have to do the work. No other company can do this work. I have to do this work. Our company has to do this work. And so my subcontractor's there, and he's like, "Well, I've got gloves that are in date. You're welcome to use them." So one of his guys bring me their gloves, and as that guy's handing me the gloves, I go, "Did you test these gloves?" And he says, "Yeah, I tested them this morning. They're good." That's a big thing right there. And again, electricians don't give a crap because it's my responsibility to test the gloves. But I easily could have, ran with that. Dude tested the gloves. He says they're good. I work really close with the subcontractor. We worked together for years. I trust those guys. Let's get to work. So could have went that way. It didn't. I got down. This cabinet was low to the ground. Typically you want to keep yourself isolated from ground as best as possible. Like with the EH rated boots, they help with that. There are dielectric over boots that you can put on, et cetera, et cetera. I was on my knee, and that's dumb because having electrically rated boots on at that point does not matter at all. Because I am directly connected to ground with my knee. So I get down there, got my spacesuit on. I take the first glove. I'm like, all right, well, I'm about to do hot work. He said the gloves are good, but I'm going to test them. I start one way you field test gloves. It's not perfect, but you got to do something. in these situations. You roll the glove up. It's a rubber glove. So you roll the end of the glove up, inflated, and then basically you keep that glove pressurized. You run it next to your face, right? To listen and feel for any air. This part of your face is super sensitive and can feel a very faint wind. So I'm going to roll that first glove up and it's not rolling up. And mind you, I'm already like really angry that that switch didn't open. I'm really upset that we're going to have to take an outage at a large power plant because of a stupid switch that should work fine. The switch should have been tested before we ever got to this point, right? Multiple times. Whatever. I'm angry. Trying to roll up the first glove. I can't get it to pressurize. The helper sees that I'm getting angrier because I'm struggling with that. He's like, "Here, hand me that glove. You roll up the other one." I hand him the glove. I grab the other one out, and as like I'm getting ready to roll that one up, I look over, and I'm not kidding, man. There's a hole that big in the end of the thumb, and that might not sound like a lot, but I mean, electricity can find its way through a microscopic hole. Like full on electricity, like every bit of current and voltage and everything that you want to pull, you can pull through that little microscopic hole. It'll blow it out, but that's how it starts, right? So again, if I would have taken that dude's word, if I would have been lazy, if I would have been rushed and careless, which I was being rushed and careless anyways, just because like I didn't want to deal with this. Like shouldn't do hot work. There's a clear sign that you're rushed. If you can de-energize the situation, you should de-energize and not do hot. So obviously I'm already rushed. I'm down on one knee. I'm not properly insulating myself from ground. Like I am making bad decisions. If I hadn't have stopped and at least tested my gloves, I was literally like between dude telling me the gloves were good and me being down there was within a minute. I was within a minute of just getting down there and grabbing onto hot bus work and calling on every bit of current that system had to give me. It would have blown me out of there. And so, again, thank God I followed protocol and tested my gloves. You always test your gloves. You never trust anybody's word when it comes to electrical work. But it messed me up, man, because that was that one step. I was angry.
Yeah, I mean,
I was angry for days after that.
I mean, you would have been dead.
Large chance.
Right.
Probably very hurt at best. And the biggest thing that bothers me about it is how angry it made me. Just at how I think, just at how vulnerable I really am. How vulnerable we really are as a people, especially vulnerable to other people's carelessness. And here's the deal, bro. Here's the carelessness part. Here's part of the reason why I was so angry. Is the subcontractor supervisor's there. And when he sees that, I found this hole in this electrical glove that his guy just told me was good, he goes, "You tested it this morning?" And the guy's response back was, "Well, I tested one of them. It's electrical glove, bro. You gonna work with one hand all day?" It's bad, man. And listen, like I love what I do. I want you to join me in my industry. Like it is a fantastic decision I made to go there and work. But you can't be lazy and you can't be careless. Period. There are people's lives on the line. I don't know, man. The biggest thing is like the real reason why I tell this story is like I'm interested to hear like, do you get angry in situations like that? And what do you guys do to really address that anger. It took me days, man. My dad was in town. Like I I acted like an utter child. Just borderline temper tantrum because I was just so messed up by this experience. Um and that's not healthy. So what do you do? I'm going to continue to work on myself and with stuff like this. That's why we're doing this book, right? But like I'm interested to read what you guys do to like handle situations like that. Let us know. Anyways, man, that's behind us. I feel good. I feel real good about like, keeping myself safe during dangerous situation. Life is good. I'm happy to be here. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that my job is never directly going to kill me.
Well, that's not true, but
Uh, well, I mean, the the only situation like that I can think of that I would ever be in is like you're in the middle of a code and you reach across a patient as the patient's getting shocked.
mm,
And
yeah,
and that's enough to stop your heart because that's what a shock is for.
absolutely.
Um, but yeah, other than that, it's like getting accidental nail stick from someone who has an infectious disease, something like that. But
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I
yeah,
need to put a defib on my truck, man. We have them, as a company on company trucks, but I drive my 350, so I need to get one of those on my personal truck for sure.
yeah, an
De-
AED,
yeah, that's definitely not something you want to need and not have.
right, right.
Yeah, that's one thing about working in the trades is like you do and nursing obviously falls right in line with that. The medical field falls right in line with this. You do find yourself a lot more prepared for health and safety incidents. Like I have one, two, three, four. I think I have 5 fire extinguishers on my truck. I have at least one first aid kit. I think I should have 2. Um, I've got strobe lights I need to put on my truck. Like, yeah, full on safety guy. I'm not safety, bro. Don't get it twisted.
I'm not either. Um,
Oh man.
we've been our big tractor, the 3930. The clutch has been going out in it basically since we bought it. We've had it for 2 years now, and like
Mhm.
we've been trying to get a guy to like work on it for us, but um, Dad just bought a flail mower, one of the ones that go out on the side, so you can like basically bush hog with it. And Dad was like bush hogging around the pond and stuff, and I was like the backside, like where the um little creek or whatever you want to call it ditch is.
Mhm.
And it's deep. It's like a 12-foot drop. And Dad's like, you got to be careful with this. And I'm like, no, you got to be careful with it because I'm not getting on that thing until the clutch is fixed. Like, I'll diss the field and stuff. But, like, there's a tree and you don't stop and you're, trying to do the controls to get the mower back in and something happens and you hit that tree and that tree don't move, it's just going to slingshot you around and off so, like, but yeah, I mean, at any time you're in the shop is the way I see it. Anytime you're in the shop, you're the softest thing there. Everything can hurt
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
right? Whether it be
Right.
electricity or a knife or a power tool. So like safety, I make the joke. It's from another YouTuber that I watch. AVE. Safety third, but like it's really safety first, right?
Yeah,
But
that's a fun one to say, but it really like this whole all right, guys, this whole shaming people for, PPE, it's not cool, man. I'll tell you one thing. I'd rather be able to see all the beautiful things I see in this world than to worry about what the hell you think about what I'm wearing. I don't care. Like, stop. You're only making yourself look like an absolute tool. Full stop. Full stop. Anyways, bro, I can go all day on construction, but we need to talk about setting our house in perfect order before criticizing the world. Because that's what rule number 6 is about. Set your house in perfect order. Good Lord. It's gonna be one of those nights. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
That was a perfect Elmer Fudd impersonation.
Oh God. Yeah, well. Count on me to stutter and butcher some freaking Bro, this chapter starts out heavy, like super dark.
Yeah. So what? Before we get into it, like you read this title of the chapter, what did you think about just like the title itself?
Oh, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like, or is it? I don't know, man. We as a people find it, I think, easy to criticize other people and declare all these things that these other people should do to make their lives better. And yet, if we have all this knowledge and wisdom about how other people treating or should be living their lives, then our lives must be perfect, right? And if they're not, then shut up.
Right.
You got stuff to work on. Focus on yourself.
The first thing I thought of was I forget what book it's in the Bible, but where Jesus is talking about they're about to stone the woman for whatever reason, and he's like the one that is without guilt or whatever can cast the first stone.
He without sin shall cast the first stone or something like that.
Yeah. And I've been doing this at work a lot. We go and you go to eat breakfast or eat lunch, and someone's normally in the break room, and you talk. And most of the time you talk about coworkers and stuff like that, and I've kind of started making it a point to where whenever we're like talking about someone, like the drama and stuff, I kind of make it a point to be like, this is what I've observed. Like, I don't say my opinion or anything like that. I'm like, this is what I observed. The call out was called. Secretary answered it, turned around and said, hey, 326 needs to go to the bathroom. And the woman sat there for 20 minutes and then go help her. Like, that's just that's just like an explanation. I'm not saying that's ever happened.
Although it sounded oddly specific.
But just, this is what I observed. And not trying to get anything into it, but like, that's kind of what I thought about was Bible view as out sin.
Yeah, no, that's a great comparison, and certainly where this is at least partially derived, so like he starts out with people that definitely didn't follow that mantra, right? Like he starts with, for instance, the Columbine shooters, which probably shouldn't even have said those words out loud on this channel, because now we're probably just going to get crushed by the algorithm for saying that. So I'm going to dance around the choice words as much as I can, but basically in the beginning pages, like he frames up this really dark avatar, if you will, this really dark mentality of these people that are so cynical and I mean, quite frankly, rightfully so to a degree. Peterson really he kind of digs into some heavy stuff, like Carl, what's his name, Panzram.
Yeah, Panzram.
that dude was brutal, man. So this guy, you might know him. He apparently is super popular, or super infamous, I guess I should say. Popular might not be the best choice of word, but he was convicted of 21 murders. He was suspected of murdering over 100 men in the United States, and some murders overseas as well. Um, an interesting one about him is he is a bit of a sodomist. Over 1,000 acts with men and boys. So, like I said, really dark stuff. And he kept escaping prison. You would think like somebody so messed up would want to just like take his aggression out on like the worst of the worst, but for whatever reason, he just tried to keep getting back out with us. And when I say us, he was born in like the 1800s and died or was executed finally in like the 1930s. So this was quite a while ago, but still brutal nonetheless. And you know, the most interesting thing about reading this in 12 Rules for Life is Peterson's like, he kind of had a reason, a justifiable reason to be so angry. He himself was like raped and like seriously abused and taken advantage of in like this juvenile system that he was put into as a kid. And that, according to himself, apparently is like what really messed him up and made him just so angry at everything around himself. Um, but with that said, Peterson also points out that like there are plenty of people that have been subject to such terrible things that aren't terrible people, you know, and in fact, quite the opposite.
Right. So before we get, too far on, because that's how he starts the chapter. All these real cynical, hateful, use that word hateful, people, and then he starts kind of asking questions, why must innocent people suffer so terribly? What kind of bloody, horrible planet is this anyway? This, that, and the other. But he gets into a really good point, because it's like, what, whether you have a justified reason for it or not. And I feel like there's never a justified reason for killing someone, right?
Right. Well,
for doing evil. Uh, you know,
murdering someone. Yeah, I'm tracking. Yeah. I'm tracking.
You could, in a hateful, spiteful. Accidents happen. And then there's, I don't want to get into it, but then there's I don't know why, when you're put before a judge and you're sentenced to death, capital punishment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like stuff like that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about
sure. There is no good reason to murder someone.
Right. Meaningfully going out and because he's not talking about just murders in this chapter. He is talking about mass murders, right?
Yeah.
And he gets there, and I don't. But like the reason, like what is the reason why people do this? And he's kind of very clear about it because it's despite God, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of my first like star thing that I wanted to go over. And I was stupid, I didn't write the page number down. But I just really thought it was funny because he not only goes, over Panzram and the some of the recent mass murders that's happened in America, things like that, but he also goes to Cain and Abel. Cain committed the first murder ever recorded, right? Well, not ever recorded because there's stuff before the Bible, but that's but he 100% did it to spite God. Like
Right.
way back then, people understood like that's normally why people, do these kinds of things. It's page 150. There's a long paragraph at the bottom. Everyone says we don't understand. How can we still pretend that? Tolstoy understood more than a century ago. The ancient authors of the biblical story of Cain and Abel understood as well more than 20 centuries ago. They described murder as the first act of post Edenic history, and not just murder, but fratricidal murder. Murder not only of someone innocent, but of someone ideal and good, and murder done consciously to spite the creator of the universe. Today's killers tell us the same thing in their own words. Um, who would dare say that this is not the worm at the core of the apple, but we still do not listen because the truth cuts too close to the bone.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know, that spoke kind of words to me because it's I always hear it in my community whenever heinous acts and stuff like that. How can someone do that? But it's been known. It's been known for forever.
Yeah,
Like, this is
generations.
why. Yeah.
And on a lesser degree, it resonated with me because, like, let's take smoking for example. Everybody in my parents' generation has battled cancer. All of my aunts, with the exception of one, and her husband died of cancer. My uncle died of cancer. My grandfather died of cancer. My father had it 3 times. Died on the operating table, as he loves to tell, several times. So, like, when I hit 18 and my friends were all smoking, and I knew I had this long list of family history of cancer, I had like this adverse reaction to that knowledge, in which it was like, well, probably gonna get cancer anyways. Might as well just smoke. I don't know. Dumb. And it was like I'd made these poor health decisions out of spite, really. Like I felt like I think I felt like I was dealt a short hand, and so screw it. I'm just gonna, you know, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. That type of mentality to a very unhealthy level. And all right, so to kind of bring it back around to what we were initially talking about, I was killing myself, bro. You know, um, with my own poisons.
Right.
And that
And because I mean, I did, right. And at this point, I'm fully aware of, like, like the repercussions and everything. But like back then, because I smoked at the same time you did. Um, Back then, wasn't it? That'll never happen to me. Like,
ooh,
I'll never get cancer, and that in and of itself is kind of saying screw you, God.
hmm
You know.
it's very arrogant. Um,
Right. Yep.
I still kind of live with the thought of, like, it's not a if but when. It's not a healthy way to live, but it's also kind of realistic.
Yeah, I'm doing that with kidney stones right now because everybody on my dad's side has had kidney stones, and
Yeah, I've had some
yeah.
kidney pain here lately, and I can't help but wonder that might be what it is.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I've been chugging water though, just hoping for the best. We shall see. All right, I want to go because, like, I'm glad you pulled us back to that. That was a good one. I did want to jump to page 153. Do you have anything in between 150 and 153?
Um, no, 154 is kind of like my next star.
Yeah, I think I've got a good one on 155. So that works out perfectly. All right, 153. So what I was talking about is like you got these terrible people, these people that have experienced these terrible life events and subsequently have become terrible people themselves. But you also, on the flip side, man, you've got chaos is not an uncommon thing, man. There are a lot of people that have a lot of struggles. Like the whole thing about you don't know what somebody else is going through is very much a real thing. And if you take the time to like get to know people intimately, you will discover that more and more through life. But that doesn't mean they succumb to that. And this is what I like in what Peterson says on page 153. He does some interesting math in this book, and this is one of the times, but it's still like it's easy enough to follow. You get the point that he's making. Page 153. Many, perhaps even most, of the adults that who abused children were abused themselves as children. How here we go. However, the majority of people who are abused as children do not abuse their own children. This is a well-established fact, uh, which can be demonstrated simply, uh, aram, aram, oh boy, yep, arithmetically.
Arithmetic,
Yeah, it's a tough
math
one, bro.
with
With math
arithmetically.
in this way.
Yeah.
Oh God, country boys trying to read a professor's freaking book. Here we go. Here's the math. If one parent abuses three children, and each of those children had three children, and so on, there would be three abusers in the first generation, 9 in the second, 27 in the third, 81 in the fourth, and so on exponentially. After 20 generations, more than 10 billion would have suffered child abuse, more than currently inhabit the planet. But instead, abuse disappears across generations. People contain the spread. That's a testament to the genuine dominance of good over evil in the human heart. I needed to read that. I'm so cynical, bro. Like, unless you have my love and respect, unless you have earned that, you get my respect out of the gate until you lose it, to the most part. But unless you've earned my love, I automatically assume that I should at least be cautious with you, you know. So it's refreshing to read that. This is Peterson, man. Peterson's seen some dark stuff. You know, he's learned about some dark situations, and even he says there's a dominance of good over evil in the human heart.
Right. Um. Uh. He kind of touched on that earlier in the chapter. I mean, earlier in the book with the when he went over the yin yang symbol. There has to be a balance. Without that balance, you know, you get people like Panzeram.
Right.
You know. And so he has like sub chapters, right? So the subchapter that we're actually under right now, and I thought it was important, is vengeance or transformation. So when you kind of find yourself in you know, getting beat up by the world, you know, that's the thought process, and that's what he's kind of going through in this part of the chapter is, you know, do you decide to take vengeance against God, as we've already discussed, and kill and burn and everything, or do you you know, you transform your life? The next paragraph from what you read on 154 is kind of where I had a star. He starts talking about T.S. Eliot's play, The Cocktail Party. And he's talking about one of the guests. And I'll just read it. One of his characters is, I'm gonna start from the beginning actually. The desire for vengeance, however justified, also bars the way to other productive thoughts. The American English poet T.S. Eliot explained why in his play The Cocktail Party, One of his characters is not having a good time of it. She speaks of her profound unhappiness to a psychiatrist. She says she hopes that all her suffering is her own fault. The psychiatrist is taken aback. He asks why. She has thought long and hard about this, she says, and has come to the following conclusion. If it's her fault, she might be able to do something about it. If it's God's fault, however, if reality itself is flawed, hell-bent on ensuring her misery, then she is doomed. She couldn't change the structure of reality itself, but maybe she could change her own life.
Yep. That's a good
And
one.
yeah, so he
What he's
the
doing there, because this goes right into my note on 155. What he's doing there is he's pointing out this is a fictional story that you just went over, but he then goes on to tell like this factual story about
Solzhenitsyn.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Yeah. But what he's getting at basically is like people being aware of their own culpability and the strife in their own life. You know, accepting the fact that they are responsible for the things that they go through via the life choices they make. We all are. It's not to say some people get dealt bad situations sometimes, but in large, we are our own biggest victim, you know, like by poor choices that we make. I want to get into the Solzhenitsyn story.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, so page 155. Well, let me just say first off, like the pages in between 153 and 155, like the brief history that you get on Solzhenitsyn is pretty impressive. Like he covers this dude's entire life basically, or he hits all the big points within a page, a little over a page. It was pretty impressive writing. On page 155, I'm going to get into a direct quote here. He says, he's talking about Solzhenitsyn. He says he remembers his unquestioning support for the Communist Party in the early years. Now, Solzhenitsyn fought against the Nazis when the Nazis were invading Russia. Okay. He reconsidered his whole life. He had plenty of time in the camp. He had been imprisoned by the Soviet Party. I don't remember why he was in prison. I think basically it was because he had committed act of treason against the state, essentially, somehow. I think it was somehow associated with the Nazi invasion. Read the book. You'll figure it out. He had plenty of time in the camp. How had he missed the mark in the past? How many times had he acted against his own conscience, engaging in actions that he knew to be wrong? How many times had he betrayed himself and lied? Was there any way that the sense of his past could be rectified, atoned for, in the muddy hell of the Soviet gulag? Solzhenitsyn pored over the details of his life with a fine-tooth comb. He asked himself a second question and a third. Can I stop making such mistakes now? Can I repair the damage done by my past failures now? He learned to watch and listen. He found people he admired who were honest despite everything. He took himself apart piece by piece, let what unnecessary and harmful die, and resurrected himself. Then he wrote The Gulag Archipelago, a history of the Soviet prison camp system. It's a forceful, terrible book written with the overwhelming moral force of unvarnished truth. Its sheer outrage screams unbearably across hundreds of pages, banned in the USSR for good reason. It was smuggled to the West in the 1970s and burst upon the world. Solzhenitsyn's writings utterly and finally demolished the intellectual credibility of communism as ideology or society. He took an axe to the trunk of the tree whose bitter fruits had nourished him so poorly and whose planting he had witnessed and supported. His self-reflection, man. It literally changed the world. It literally tore down or helped tear down the suppressive regime. You've got to recognize your own culpability in the situations you find yourself in, and more importantly, figure out how to address those issues and dig yourself out of it, man. We all have to do it to some degree. Work on yourself. Focus on yourself first before you focus on the world. Get it right.
Yeah. He Peterson talks about it more a little bit further on. But Solzhenitsyn does like the one like important thing, and he asks himself three questions. You in your quote, you covered question 2 and 3. I'll read them again. But the first thing he asked was, had he personally contributed to the catastrophe of his life? If so, how? Then a second question was, can I stop making such mistakes now? And then the third, can I repair the damage done by my past failures now? He's taking responsibility for his life, right?
Yep.
And I feel like that's I feel like I've said it again and again and again through this podcast so far, but like that's kind of what we have to do, right? To grow.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's kind of a hard thing to do.
We have to do it. You got to figure it out, right? Like we're not getting any of this time back. You know, that's the
Right.
thing is like you can want for better, or you can act to create better. That is a choice that you are making. As you sit here watching or listening to this right now, you can make a decision right now to do better for yourself.
Right.
But
and
you
then
have
look
to
and
act on it.
see look and see what Solzhenitsyn was able to accomplish by asking himself these three questions honestly and then acting upon them to better. He you know, destroyed communism basically.
Yeah.
You know, right. I mean, there's other factors and stuff like that, but it was him.
And listen, guys, like we know you like to do the same things we like to do. You know, we know you like to be out on the water. We know you like to be out in the woods. You get time to do this self-reflection and really dig into yourself and take yourself apart. You have that time. You make that time for yourself as it is. We all do. Are you using it wisely? And if you aren't, well, when are you going to start? Because we need you to. And listen, like I want to go ahead and I want to jump into page 156 because we want you to do better because we know you can do better because we're sitting here together right now, right? And on 156, this is kind of a side note, okay? But I think this is an important one. And I'd really, like, it's in this chapter for a reason, but more importantly for us and what we are going to do together, I want you to remember this one. Because I hope you build an empire. And on page 156, Peterson's talking about, you know, the Hebrew empire that was and, you know, how things kind of fell apart for them, you know, and why. So here on page 156, as their fortunes rise, and mind you, like Peterson notes, like the Hebrews built an empire. They were very good at organizing a society. There was no question about that. So he says, as their fortunes rise, success breeds pride and arrogance. Corruption raises its ugly head. Here's the part right here. The increasingly hubristic state becomes obsessed with power and begins to forget its duty to the widows and orphans and what is that word? Deviates of
Deviates.
its age old agreement with God. We've got it. You're going to become more successful, you know, as you go through life. If you start focusing on, you know, creating a better life for yourself. But what we can't do And there are serious implications if we don't do this, because somebody's going to force it in the most corrupt way possible. We have to start taking care of our fellow man now, willingly, because the alternative is a very slippery slope. You know, I wanted to point that out. Like we can't forget that. We've got to take care of our fellow man. We want to pull you up with us. Okay, you're going on this trip with us. We hope so, at least. And as we get to these certain milestones that we're going to set for ourselves over time, we need to be motivating those people around us that we care about to come up with us. And then hopefully that next generation pulls the people around them up, and so on and so on. And a big part of that is like, creating this community movement of upward trajectory, right? But that's because we're going to be motivated, right? We're like-minded people. Not everybody's like us. And that's okay. We can't forget about them. We have to take care of them. The alternative is not a good thing. We've been down that road. I'm off my soapbox.
But no, I mean,
go ahead, man.
You're
What you got?
You're 100% right, because this is he's starting another subchapter on 156, and his things fall apart, and he's talking about how when civilizations as a whole, lose sight of what's important, things start falling apart. So you can look at this, and you can look at it as the civilization, or as a soul person, right? But that's what he talks about with the Hebrew Empire, and there at the bottom of that paragraph on 156. So they deviated from their agreements with God, and this, that, and the other, and a prophet comes, but the heat is warning too late, and God, sends his wrath, and then they're punished. And then this is the important part to me. The Hebrews repent at length, blaming their misfortune on their own failure to adhere to God's word. They insist to themselves that they could have done better. They rebuild their state, and the cycle begins again. Again, just taking, responsibility for your own actions. And then he.
Oh, I love that. That's a very important statement. Taking responsibility for your own actions. I've heard it 1,000 times, but have you understood it? Do you know what that really means?
So I feel like the top of 157, I'm kind of skipping one of my, but I really want to talk about this. He talks about the hurricane that
God
hit New Orleans.
You're taking my thunder, bro. You're taking my thunder. Super religious people, I want you to listen to this one. Okay? Everybody needs to listen to this one. You religious folk definitely need to listen to what we're about to get into.
I'm just gonna read it. I'm gonna start on 157, and I'm gonna read until like the thing that hit me in the chest. Right.
All right, let's hear it.
When the hurricane hit New Orleans and the town sank under the waves, was that a natural disaster? The Dutch prepared their dikes for the worst storm in 10,000 years. Had New Orleans followed that example, no tragedy would have occurred. It's not that no one knew. The Flood Control Act of 1965 mandated improvements in the levee system that held back Lake Pontchartrain. Yeah.
Pontchartrain.
The system was to be completed by 1978. 40 years later, only 60% of the work had been done. Willful blindness and corruption took the city down. A hurricane is an act of God, but failure to prepare when the necessity for preparation is well known, that's sin. Like that, I got goosebumps.
Yeah. The failure to hit the mark,
and the wages of sin is death.
That's right.
Yeah.
I want to read it again. A hurricane is an act of God, but failure to prepare when the necessity for preparation is well known, that's sin. Let's take a second to really think about how broad of a statement that can be. You know what's right. You know what you need to do, at least to a degree, to set things right in your own life. Are you doing that? And if you aren't, that's a sin, bro. You need to get it right. This is a big one, man. This is a big chapter.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, like it's just so easy to get on Reddit and just see people blast other people. And it's like, those words are so toxic. It's a perfect tiny little window into what's going on the other side of that computer or the other side of the internet there. And it's like,
Right.
God, if you put that energy into yourself, how better off would we all be?
And it's so easy to say bad things about someone over the internet, right?
Yep.
So I don't know, don't feed the trolls, I guess. But like the rest of that paragraph too. The ancient Jews always the ancient Jews always blamed themselves when things fell apart. They acted as if God's goodness, the goodness of reality, was axiomatic and took responsibility for their own failure. That's insanely responsible. But the alternative is to judge reality as insufficient, to criticize being itself, and to sink into resentment and the desire for revenge. So that last sentence, the alternative is to judge reality as insufficient, to criticize being itself, and to sink into resentment and the desire for revenge. 100% what he's talking about in the beginning of the book. That's how the people, the mass murderers, Panzram, et cetera, that's how they view the world.
Yep. And on a much lesser degree, it's the world's always doing me unjustly. It's the
right.
Why is the man always holding me down? Why can't I catch a break? And again, some people have caught some bad breaks. I get that. I'm not living in a bubble here, but are you? Are you keeping yourself contained in this bubble in which you are like utterly unself-aware? Let me continue with 157, man. This was a big page because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Consider your circumstances. Start small. Have you taken full advantage of the opportunities offered to you? Are you working hard on your career or even your job? Are you letting bitterness and resentment hold you back and drag you down? Have you made peace with your brother? Are you treating your spouse and your children with dignity and respect? Do you have habits that are destroying your health and well-being? That's me. Are you truly shouldering your responsibilities? Have you said what you need to say to your friends and family members? Are there things that you can do? Yeah, I hear you. Are there things that you can do that you know you could do that would make things around you better? Have you cleaned up your life? If the answer is no, here's something to try. Start to stop doing what you know to be wrong. Start stopping today. Don't waste time questioning how you know what you are doing is wrong if you are certain that it is. An opportune questioning can confuse without enlightening, as well as deflecting you from action. You can know that something is wrong without knowing why. Your entire being can tell you something that you can neither explain nor articulate. Every person is too complex to know themselves completely. And we all contain the wisdom that cannot be comprehended. Big paragraph.
Yeah. I love that line. Are there things that you could do that you know you could do that would make things around you better? I love that line.
Swolstradamus, whatever his name is on Instagram. I love that guy. I freaking love that guy. Have you gone to the gym today? Did you go to the gym?
What, me?
Did you go to the gym? You watching? Did you go to the gym? Did you go to the gym? Why not? Didn't have time? I don't think so. You could have made time. There's tomorrow. What are you going to do tomorrow? I told you last week. I told you 6 weeks ago. Do the hardest thing first. Do the hardest thing first. That's my personal opinion. And obviously, it's not my personal opinion. I heard it somewhere, and it's what works for me. But you got to start somewhere, man. And that the health thing is huge, because what you do with your physical health affects your mental health. It's not this perfect solution, but I promise you, if you really try, if you really work on your physical health and you are introspective enough, you will notice an improvement in your mental health. I promise you that.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything bad or anything about that, about the word motivation or whatever, but um motivation is fleeting. I think
Yeah.
I've said this. I feel like I've said this 1,000 times.
We've certainly talked about it.
Yeah, motivation is fleeting. It's discipline, right? Discipline is when you go, man, but I'm just tired today. I don't feel like going to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Discipline is what in those moments of your life, I was like, no, I got to do it. Let's go.
Yep. Yep. And I get it. You've got kids at home. You're working 16 hours a day. I get it. But are you doing everything you can to structure your life in a way to where you can make time 2 or 3 times a day to focus for 30 minutes to an hour on your physical health? And
Yeah,
don't lie to yourself. Are you really thinking that through?
Yeah. I'm gonna bring us back into the book, if you don't mind. So the next paragraph from where you stopped at 158. So simply stop when you apprehend, however dimly, that you should stop. Stop acting in that particular despicable manner. Stop saying those things that make you weak and ashamed. Say only those things that make you strong. Do only those things that you could speak of with honor. That's so simple.
Yeah. It's not. It's it's simple to understand.
No, I'm going to tell you that, to me, that is so simple. And like, you can say it's not all you want to, but it's just whenever you're about to cuss someone out, understand that it's wrong and that it's not going to bring you honor, and just simply don't do it. When you get upset at work because the valve won't turn off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's not that simple, and that's
I know.
That's the stuff that we have to work through, because, and listen, guys, that's another thing that I've been thinking about that I want to talk to you all about is, like, I think if I would have taken some time to, and all right, crucify me in the comments. I don't care. Bring it on. If I would have taken the time to meditate, on what had happened, I don't think I would have been as angry as I was all weekend. I don't think I would have been that miserable to be around. And that's really what I want to talk to you guys about, is like, meditation might have a negative, it might invoke this negative emotion for you, right? Like, you think granola cruncher, right? Like this hippy dippy just doesn't do anything for themselves. Like,
right. So that's where I was about to say, to you, exactly what does meditation mean to you? Because it's simply just thinking about the issue, right? Whatever problem it is.
Well, it starts with that, right? Like,
right.
I think it's so true meditation is like clearing your mind, which is ultimately what you've got to get to. Would I start with moments like that as like working through the issue itself? Like, what am I angry about? What am I upset about? Okay. How does that how can I change the situation? Is this worth my time and the stress that it's inducing into my life? And as I work through that, I just try to find a quiet space in my head to just sit for a minute. And that's what I was talking about, like being out on the water. What a perfect time to just like sit and reset, because like life is going to be stressful. That's not going to stop. You can make all the money in the world, but you're not going to get rid of all your stress, So it's important to like figure out ways to work through this, and like meditation is not a bad thing, guys. It's healthy. And that's a part of what we're trying to do here is be better physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, like all these things. It's a whole picture approach.
I think that's one of the things. I've said it before. Where I just kind of experience myself. I don't want to say it that way. That's weird.
No, I'm tracking, bro. I'm with you.
Oh.
I know what you're saying.
Because I don't know about like finding out who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 32 years old, and there's stuff about me I still don't know. But like, being able to look at yourself in the mirror for 10 minutes and just be your own company, right? And that's one of the things. Because I used to get stressed out at work about little things that would happen, and it would be me like stomping through the nurse's station, like cussing, like not under my breath, but not loudly either. But where people could hear me, and I didn't care. And now it's just like, oh wait, now I understand. This is just work. It's just part of the job. It's nothing to be upset about. That's what they pay me to do, right? And yeah, that's part of it. I don't want to say that I meditate because of like what you were saying, like the granola bar and
granola crunchers.
Yeah, and
crunchy.
But yeah, I mean it's finding yourself and then realizing that a lot of problems are really problems,
Yeah, and you just made me think of something that I again want to talk with you guys about is like, we've been talking, and meditation has many forms in my opinion, like taking the boat out, being by yourself, being quiet. That's meditation. And maybe you don't know what that is yet, but what we're hoping we can do together is maybe we find something together. Like there are certain things that Zach and I don't know how to do that we want to learn how to do. And it's those type of things in which you can clear your head, you can be with yourself and kind of reset. Like we've talked about this, man, like surfing. Summer's coming up. And like, I don't know if you know this or not, but like surfing's actually a good old boy thing. Like, I don't know where you're at in the world right now, but down here in the Southeast, the good old boys know how to shred the gnar. And this one wants to learn how. So
I'd love to learn.
All right. We're gonna make that happen. That's coming up. Mark my words, that's coming up. All right. We're gonna do that. What is something that you want to learn? What is something that we might be able to learn together? I'll tell you another one, another good old boy one, another relaxing one, or maybe not so relaxing is golf. I want to add that one to the list too. And I'm interested to read like what you want to learn. Go ahead, man. What you got?
I mean, I golfed in high school and was never any good. But at the same time, like my family members that are like really big time golfers, and I've always wanted to like get back into it and at least like figure something out well enough to where, and like that's one of the things I want to point out here. These kinds of things, it's the same. It's not quite the same, but it's almost the same as going to the gym.
Sure. Sure.
because you're going to go and do something difficult. Learning a new skill is difficult, right?
Right.
So, to have that mindset and then to go out there and attempt to conquer it, right? Yeah, I don't know, golf. I'm really down for golfing, but I've always wanted to do some kind of woodworking.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That one's got to happen too. I don't have a lot of experience woodworking. I've got some projects I can show y'all, but I probably shouldn't. But yeah, that's definitely one that I hope we can get into in the future as well. Just let us know, like, what are the things that you want to learn, and to be more specific, I want to bring us back to the book. I want to tie this all together. What I'm actually talking about is like things that you can do and be introspective or clear your head while doing so. Both of those are very important. They're very different things. They do kind of go together with one another. You know, sometimes you clear your head and then become introspective. Sometimes you're in a moment of being introspective and then your head's clear and you just kind of sit in that moment. But let me bring it back to 158 because this is what I'm getting at. This is a great statement that Peterson makes, and like I'm done after this one because this is like, in my opinion, this is the payoff for this chapter. He lays everything out for us in this one paragraph that I'm about to butcher. Don't blame capitalism, the radical left, and the iniquity of your enemies. Don't reorganize the state until you have ordered your own experience. Have some humility. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that in our political world these days, in my opinion. If you cannot bring peace to your household, how dare you try to rule a city? Let your own soul guide you. Watch what happens over the days and weeks. When you are at work, you will likely begin to say what you really think. You will start to tell your wife or your husband or your children or your parents what you really want and need. When you know that you have left something undone, you will act to correct the omission. Your head will start to clear up as you stop filling it with lies. Your experience will improve as you stop distorting it with as you stop with inauthentic actions. Okay, thank you. You knew my talk to sex got me there. My stupid accent. You will then begin to discover new, more subtle things that you are doing wrong. Stop doing those too. After some months and some years of diligent effort, your life will become simpler and less complicated. Your judgment will improve. You will untangle your past. You will become stronger and less bitter. You will move more confidently into the future. You will stop making your life unnecessarily difficult. You will stop making your life unnecessarily difficult. Do you hear that? Are you doing that? Are you aware that you're doing that? I know people that do that. And I want to shake them, but I love them and I can't. And they've got to come to these conclusions themselves. But I hope that you're reading this book and you're coming to these conclusions if you're dealing with this. Like, get it together. We're going to get it together. We're going to work on this together. You will be left with the inevitable bare tragedies of life. They're not going away, guys. But they will no longer be compounded with the bitterness and deceit. That's it. That's chapter 6 right there. If you don't get anything else out of the chapter, read that on page 158. Love it. Love it.
And so that's just the goal, right?
Oh,
that's the goal.
Money shot with the water.
I was trying to figure out what you were talking about.
Baptize you. Oh man, good old hotel water.
Oh man, the best.
So that's it, guys. That's it. Are you reflecting on your own life and your own culpability? If that could sum this chapter up in a single question, that's it. So you got the book. What are we getting into next week?
Sleep. I just changed it. Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. That's a thick chapter too. Thick as in long.
Yeah.
It's
gonna be another long episode, but we will get through it, and you will get through that chapter because this is a beneficial book. It's a good one.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
What chapter are we on? Looking back and seeing if did we do chapter 2 yet? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So we did the stand up straight with your shoulders back, yeah.
Yep.
Did we do the treat yourself like someone you were responsible for helping?
Yes, we did.
We did.
That was a very long episode.
Make friends with people who want the best for you.
That's right.
That's
why we're here. That's why we're friends.
Yep. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today.
Absolutely.
Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. And then the day we did set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
You see what he just did there. Like, it's good to revisit those rules.
Yeah. Because you had a life and death situation, you probably aren't getting what I'm trying to get at. So me and you talked about, I think it was like 2 chapters ago, we went back to rule 1,
right?
And we talked about how we're doing that. I'm doing that at work. I'm taking a moment and thinking about my posture.
Yep.
We talked about that. Have we talked about treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping?
A little bit. That's why.
That's
why I'm going to the gym.
I have a doctor's appointment.
I still haven't done that. I've got to schedule it, man. I have to.
I'm a nurse at a hospital. Doctors. I'm not going to say the words that are coming out of my mouth, but most time we don't get along, and I'm going to go see one, like of my own free will. I'm excited about it.
Got to do it. I owed you a doctor's appointment on one of our last episodes, and I still haven't done that. I have failed you. I've failed myself, but it is pulled up in my phone. I am going to get that scheduled tomorrow. I'm going to make a reminder in my phone right now to get that scheduled tomorrow for noon o'clock tomorrow. That way there's no excuse. I should be able to stop what I'm doing long enough on my lunch break, what is a lunch break, but still.
For anybody who's like listening and like kind of taking this book somewhat seriously as we are, if you're younger, like if you're still living with your mom and dad or whatever, I want you, and like you're kind of following along with like what we're doing, and if you decide that I want to go see a doctor just to see what's going on, do some lab work and stuff like that, I won't make it a point for yourself to call and schedule that appointment.
Yeah.
Don't leave it up to your mom.
That's right.
Okay? Like talk to your parents about it or whatever, but also don't leave it up to your wife either. Like do it. You do that.
Yep. Absolutely.
That was a big one for me, because I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm going to schedule a doctor's appointment. And she immediately was like, oh, you want me to do it for you? And I'm like, no, I'm a grown man. I can
do this.
I can do this.
If you're sitting at home at your parents' house right now, we're glad you're with us. I wish at that point in my life that I would have found a community like this. And so thanks for being here. And we're just as excited to see what you are going to do with your life as we're excited to see what we can do with ours.
Yeah, we want to know. Keep us updated.
Absolutely. 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 It's going to be a fun one, guys. It's got some dark moments, man, and some heavy stuff, but we got to work through some stuff, you know.
That's why we go to the gym, so we can lift those heavy things.
That's right. Got to get used to it. Got to get used to it. All right, folk. Well, we're going to get back into it next week. Thank you for sticking it out with us. We're glad you're still here. And yeah, we will see you on the morrow next week. Bye, y'all.